Every step Sam took as he walked out of the prison gates was filled with the relief of freedom, a feeling he had given up 5 years of his life to regain. Sam took a deep breath and silently swore to himself that he would never return to this place. 5 years ago, he'd been a big deal in Los Angeles. Back then, he threw parties in penthouses overlooking the city. His car collection was the stuff of legends, and the people around him, they couldn't get enough. They drank his champagne, laughed at his jokes, and called him the guy you could trust. Investments that didn't exist, opportunities that were too good to be true. And for a while, it worked. Sam lived like a king, convincing himself it would last forever. But there was always a quick end. One morning, the federal police showed up, knocking on his office door with an arrest warrant in hand. By noon, they had him in handcuffs. As they let him out, someone in the crowd, one of his so-called friends perhaps, shouted, "Guess the party's over." Sam didn't answer, but anyone could see it on his face. He knew they were right. The courtroom was nearly empty during the sentencing. All the people who had toasted his success had left. His lawyer murmured something reassuring, but unimportant. The judge's voice boomed out, "Samuel Taylor, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison." Sam didn't flinch. He just turned, scanning the rows of seats, and saw nothing but strangers. "Where are your big-shot friends now, huh?" a guard had sneered as he was led to his cell. The words stung more than he cared to admit. The silence in prison was suffocating, but it forced him to confront truths he'd spent years avoiding. Letters never came. He had muttered to himself one night, staring at the cracked ceiling of his cell, "Not a damn soul cares if I'm alive." The one person who had always stood by him, no matter how bad things got, was gone. His grandmother. She had raised him after his parents disappeared from his life, teaching him kindness and resilience, but he had squandered everything she gave him. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he whispered more times than he could count, though he knew she would never hear it. So here he was, walking down a dusty road in Texas with nothing but a duffel bag and a plan. A truck rolled past, the driver leaning out the window to shout, "You're free now, buddy! Don't screw it up!" Sam raised a hand in acknowledgement, but his face stayed calm. He wasn't interested in proving anything to anyone else. This time, he was doing it for himself. Sam had a bit of cash stashed away, just enough to start fresh. Not the kind of fresh start most people imagined, though. Sam didn't want the city lights or the fast cars anymore. He wanted something real. That's why he was headed to Kansas, of all places. He'd found a listing for a small, run-down house outside a quiet town. 3 weeks later, he was driving through the Kansas countryside, the horizon stretching endlessly in every direction. The last thing he expected was to meet Nathan. Nathan was a mess. His clothes were disheveled, his unshaven face barely lit up by the weak afternoon sun. He spoke quickly, his words tangled with a thick accent and more than a hint of desperation. Sam had seen enough shady deals in his life to know something wasn't right. "Look, the house is yours for next to nothing," Nathan said, waving a hand toward the property. "Half the price, and you're in." Sam eyed the place suspiciously. The house was in disrepair, broken windows, overgrown yard, peeling paint. Nothing about it screamed, "Deal of a lifetime." "What's the catch?" Sam asked, a slight edge in his voice. Nathan hesitated, then grinned. "I need to get out of here. I've got plans, but there's a condition." He paused, as if gauging Sam's reaction. "You got to take care of my mom, Betty. She's old, you know. I can't deal with her anymore." Sam froze. "You want me to move in and take care of your mother? For a house?" "Exactly," Nathan replied with a shrug. "It's just her and me, and I can't waste time on her. But you, if you're up for it, you get the place." Sam wasn't sure whether to laugh or walk away. The idea was strange. maybe even ridiculous. But something nagged at him. The price was right, and he'd been living alone long enough to know what loneliness felt like. Taking care of an old woman might be odd, but it was still a roof over his head. Nathan didn't wait for Sam's response. He handed him the keys, almost too eagerly. "You'll figure it out," he said, disappearing without another word. Sam was left standing in the yard, holding the keys to a house that seemed more like a burden than a blessing. But when he walked inside, everything changed. The moment Sam stepped in, he heard the shuffling of slow, deliberate steps. From the shadows of the hallway, an elderly woman emerged. Her face was weathered by age, yet there was a gentleness in her eyes that reminded Sam of something he hadn't thought about in years: his grandmother. She looked at him with a soft smile. "You must be the new one," she said in a faint, raspy voice. Sam felt a lump in his throat. He nodded. "Yeah, Nathan told me about you." The resemblance to his late grandmother was uncanny. The warmth, the quiet strength. He saw it all in her. His heart softened in a way he hadn't expected. The old woman didn't need much, just someone to look after her, to give her some peace. As they spoke, Sam felt an undeniable pull to her, something familiar, something that made him feel less alone. "You know, Sam," Betty said softly, her voice full of warmth, "it's rare to find someone who truly cares. I'm lucky to have you here." Sam smiled, though a knot tightened in his chest. "I'm lucky to be here, Betty. I didn't expect this, but it feels right." Now, he was here, face to face, with an elderly woman who needed care. And for the first time in a long while, he wondered if this could be his chance to make up for his past mistakes. The deal had seemed bizarre at first, but as Sam spent more time with Betty, something shifted. He wasn't just taking care of her out of obligation. There was a deeper connection. Her kindness, the way she spoke, the way she moved. It reminded him of his own grandmother, the woman who had raised him when his parents were too caught up in their own lives. He wasn't sure what was more surprising, the house or the feeling that Betty had given him a new lease on life. Sam had come here expecting nothing but solitude, but now he had a purpose. Nathan had abandoned his responsibility. Sam didn't know what kind of man would leave their mother behind for the sake of their own desires, but he was learning quickly. Sam moved into his new house, a quiet neighborhood that offered nothing but space and a chance to rebuild. The house wasn't much, old, worn out, and in desperate need of repairs, but it was his. It wasn't far from the heart of the town, but it felt like it was miles away from everything he knew. And that's exactly what he needed. As days passed, Sam found himself repairing the house, bit by bit. The roof needed patching, the floors were creaky, and the kitchen was in terrible shape. But it was the kitchen that grabbed his attention the most. Betty, who had lived here alone for so long, seemed to live for those moments when she could sit in the kitchen, brewing tea or organizing her collection of old recipe cards. It was her place of peace. Sam knew it had to be perfect for her. He spent hours fixing the sink, repainting the cabinets, and replacing the old stove. Betty watched from the doorway, silently at first, then slowly starting to offer him a smile, and finally, some words of appreciation. She didn't say much, but her eyes said enough. The gratitude she felt for his care, something so rare in her life, was clear. One evening, as Sam cleaned up the kitchen, Betty walked in and stood there watching him. "You've done a good job," she said softly, her voice full of an emotion Sam couldn't place. "I figured if I'm going to live here, I might as well make it livable," Sam replied, wiping his hands on a rag. Betty nodded, but Sam could see the unspoken words in her eyes. She hadn't had someone take care of her in a long time. Not like this. Her son, Nathan, had stopped visiting years ago. He had moved out, started his own family, and left Betty behind, as if she were nothing more than a memory. Sam noticed the sadness in her eyes. It wasn't something she expressed directly, but it was there, lingering just beneath the surface. He didn't know much about Betty's past, but he could feel the weight of it. He wasn't about to push her, but he also wasn't going to pretend it wasn't there. So, one evening as they sat together sipping tea, he decided to speak up. "You know," he said, his voice quiet, "I lost my grandmother a while back. She was like a second mother to me. I didn't realize how much I needed her until she was gone." Betty's eyes softened. "I know the feeling," she murmured, almost to herself. Sam looked up at her. "What happened with your family, Betty?" For a moment, Betty didn't answer. She just stared into her cup, as if the answer was hidden somewhere inside the steaming tea. Then she spoke, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. "Nathan, my son, he left. Not for any good reason. He just stopped coming around. I don't even know where he is now. I tried to call, but I always get the voicemail." Sam didn't know what to say. It wasn't his place to offer advice. He had his own battles to fight, but the pain in Betty's voice made something inside him twist. He had never had a family like that, but he could understand what it meant to feel abandoned. "I'm sorry, Betty," he said quietly. "That's a heavy thing to carry." She looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. Her face softened, and she managed a small smile. "It's not your fault, Sam. It's just life, I suppose." They sat in silence for a few moments, both lost in their thoughts. For Sam, the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was a moment of shared understanding. In that moment, he realized he wasn't just fixing a house. He was repairing something much deeper, a connection with another person who, like him, had been missing something. As time passed, their conversations became more frequent. They'd talk over breakfast, or while Sam worked on the house, or sometimes just before bed. Betty told him about her life, her childhood, her husband who had passed years ago. Sam listened intently, sometimes offering a few words, but mostly just letting her speak. It wasn't about offering solutions or fixing problems. It was about being present. And Sam realized, in those moments, that this was the family he had been searching for. Sam never expected this new chapter in his life to be so full of healing. He had come here to escape, to get away from everything that reminded him of the mess he had made of his own life. But what he found instead was the chance to rebuild. Not just a house, but a sense of family, a family that didn't judge, that didn't expect anything from him but his presence. Nathan sat at the kitchen table, staring at the email for what felt like the 100th time. The words, "investment opportunity," flashed on the screen. A few days ago, that promise of untold wealth had seemed like a lifeline. Now, it was the rope tightening around his neck. The $200,000 from the sale of their house had vanished into thin air, and all they had left was debt. His phone buzzed. Sarah's text read, "I can't believe we've been duped, Nathan. How could you let this happen?" The weight of her words hit harder than anything. He had promised her a new beginning. Now, they were left with nothing but shattered dreams and mounting bills. Nathan clenched his fists, trying to ignore the sting of her accusation, but the tension in the house was palpable. Sarah stormed into the room, her face flushed with anger. "I trusted you," she snapped. "You said this would work, and now we're drowning in debt. What were you thinking?" Nathan shot back, his voice rising. "I didn't know." It seemed legitimate. They had all the right credentials, the reviews, everything. Sarah shook her head. "Everything but common sense, Nathan. You've destroyed us." Her voice cracked. "You ruined everything." Nathan stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I didn't ask you to trust me. I didn't ask you to follow me into this mess." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears, but Nathan couldn't find the strength to comfort her. Instead, he turned his back, frustration boiling over. "I'm not the only one to blame here, Sarah. You're just as much a part of this." She recoiled, eyes wide with disbelief. "How dare you say that?" she hissed. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to watch our future burn because you couldn't think for 1 second?" The silence between them was suffocating, but it didn't last long. The shouting resumed, louder now. Sarah, furious, grabbed a vase from the shelf and hurled it across the room. The crash was deafening. Nathan reacted instinctively, shoving the coffee table aside. He wasn't thinking anymore, just acting on anger, on frustration, on failure. "You think this is my fault?" he shouted, his chest heaving. "Look around, Sarah. We're both in this." Before he could stop himself, he slammed his fist into the wall, the sound echoing through the house. Sarah stumbled back, her hand clutching her arm. The sharp pain that shot through her body was not as strong as the sting of betrayal that lingered. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You promised me, Nathan." "You promised." Nathan's heart sank, guilt and anger battling inside him. He had never meant for it to go this far, but in his mind, it had. He had failed her. He had failed them both. The next few weeks were a blur of desperation. They had to sell everything, the furniture, the car, anything they could. The house was already gone. Nathan found himself back in the job market, but he couldn't shake the humiliation that followed him wherever he went. His confidence was gone, replaced by a gnawing sense of failure. Every job interview felt like a reminder of how far he had fallen. The rejections piled up, and with each one, the knot in his stomach tightened. He wasn't just failing Sarah, he was failing himself. He had built their entire future on a promise that had turned out to be a lie. Sarah's silence during this time was unbearable. She no longer yelled, she no longer argued. She simply withdrew into herself, and Nathan was left to face the emptiness of their home and of his own life. One night, Sarah looked at him across the dinner table, the remnants of a barely touched meal between them. "What now?" she asked softly, her voice devoid of the anger it once held. "Where do we go from here?" Nathan didn't know how to answer. He didn't know how to make things right, how to fix what was broken. He was lost, and it felt like the more he tried to find his way, the further he fell. "I don't know, Sarah," he said finally, his voice hollow. "I don't know." That night, as they lay in bed, the space between them seemed insurmountable. Nathan stared at the ceiling, the weight of everything they had lost pressing down on him. "I'm sorry," he whispered into the dark, though he wasn't sure if Sarah could hear him. Maybe it didn't matter. It was too late for apologies. Sarah didn't reply. The silence stretched on, both of them swallowed up in the heavy darkness of their situation. After everything that happened, Sam knew he had to start over. He had been knocked down too many times, but this time he was determined to make something lasting. So, he opened a small construction company in Kansas City. At first, it wasn't easy. The work was tough, and the competition was fierce. But Sam had a vision, one where quality and trust mattered more than cutting corners. Betty, always a steady hand in his life, was there from the beginning. She didn't just offer words of encouragement, she was hands-on. She helped him with hiring, using her sharp eye to pick the right people. Sam couldn't say enough about her intuition. There was a woman with years of experience behind every decision she made. She knew people. And in business, that mattered more than anything. One day, Sam was about to hire someone Betty had warned him about, a guy named Mike who had a sketchy background, according to Betty. He ignored her advice at first, thinking he could handle it. But it didn't take long for Sam to realize she had been right. Mike tried to pull a fast one, padding the hours on a project and pocketing the extra cash. When Sam caught on, he didn't hesitate. Mike was out, and just like that, the lesson stuck. Betty knew exactly who could be trusted and who couldn't, and Sam was learning the hard way. With Betty's guidance and Sam's determination, the company slowly started to gain a reputation. It wasn't just about building buildings, it was about building trust with the clients. And in a city full of people trying to make a name for themselves, that mattered. Sam worked late nights, put in the effort, and slowly, things began to turn around. By the time the first year passed, Sam could finally see the fruits of his labor. He wasn't rich yet, but he was respected. He had made it through the tough times, learned the lessons, and built something solid. And every time someone spoke highly of him or his company, he thought about Betty. Without her, none of it would have happened. Nathan had nowhere else to turn. His pride was shattered, and his options had dwindled to nothing. He knew he had to swallow his pride and go back to the one person he thought he'd never ask for help again, his mother. He walked into Sam's company with a grim sense of determination. He had no job, no money, and a reputation that was quickly fading. The desperation in his eyes was clear as he approached the receptionist. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked, looking up from her desk. "I'm here to see Sam," Nathan replied, his voice flat. "Tell him it's Nathan." When Sam appeared in the lobby, Nathan braced himself for the awkwardness of the moment. Sam had never been fond of him, but Nathan needed a chance. He needed this job. Well, look who's back," Sam said, his voice tinged with both surprise and skepticism. "What do you want?" Nathan hesitated for a second. He wasn't sure where to begin. The anger, the shame, it all mixed together. But there was no time for playing games. "I need a job, please," he said. "I know I messed up, but I can work, I can prove myself, just give me a chance." Sam looked at him, sizing him up for a long moment. "You've done a lot of things, Nathan, and none of them have been good. What's different this time?" Before Nathan could respond, a voice interrupted from the doorway. "Sam, I'll handle this." It was Betty, his mother. Nathan froze, the sight of her hitting him like a punch in the gut. The woman standing before him wasn't the same frail, broken woman he'd left behind. She stood tall, looking polished, her face healthier, her posture confident. The years of worry seemed to have lifted from her. She looked happy. "Mum," he whispered, his voice barely audible. She smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "Nathan, you're back." He took a step forward, but Betty didn't flinch. Instead, she crossed her arms and studied him. "You look different," he said, trying to mask his guilt with a weak smile. Betty didn't return the smile. "Do I? Or is it just that you haven't seen me in a long time?" Her tone was steady, controlled, but Nathan heard the hurt hidden beneath her calm. "I'm sorry, Mum," he said, his voice cracking. "I messed up. I should have never—" "Stop!" she cut him off, her gaze hardening. "You don't get to apologize just because you need something. You don't get to use me again." Nathan's face dropped, but he pushed on. "I know I've been wrong, and I know I haven't been a good son. But Sam's company, I need a job. You know I can work. Please, Mum, just ask Sam to help me. I'm not asking for charity, just a chance." Betty's eyes narrowed. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Nathan, I'm not stupid. You're not here because you've had some sudden moment of self-realization. You're here because you've got nothing left. And that's why you're looking for Sam's help. But you've hurt me so much already. I won't stand by and let you drag me down again." Nathan opened his mouth to argue, but Betty held up a hand to stop him. "I'm not done. You think you can just walk in here, flash an apology, and everything will go back to normal? You've hurt me, Nathan. And it's not just about the job. It's about the way you treated me, the way you abandoned me. You left me alone for all these years, and now you expect me to give you what you want. The silence between them stretched on. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest, but he couldn't say a word. The truth of her words hit him like a ton of bricks. She was right. He had abandoned her. He had used her for too long, and now, when things were falling apart, he wanted her to fix it. Betty's face softened, but just slightly. I'll always love you, Nathan. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let you destroy everything I've built. I'm not going to watch you ruin yourself and pull me back into your mess. You'll have to find another way. He swallowed hard, his throat tight. Please, Mum. I need this. Betty shook her head. No, Nathan. You don't need this. What you need is to take responsibility for the choices you've made. You need to learn what it means to stand on your own 2 feet, to take care of yourself. This is not the way. Nathan stood there, his stomach twisting in knots. The shame of his actions, the weight of the years he'd spent taking his mother's sacrifices for granted, all hit him at once. Don't make me regret giving you everything I had left, Betty continued, her voice hardening again. If you truly want to change, you'll have to prove it. But not like this. Not by asking me for help when you've already shown me what kind of man you are. With that, Betty turned to Sam. I'm done here, she said, her voice firm. She didn't wait for Sam to respond. She simply walked away. Nathan stayed frozen for a moment, watching her leave. The door clicked shut behind her, and Sam turned back to him, a cold look in his eyes. You heard her. Get your act together, Nathan. Sam didn't need to say more. The message was clear. Nathan turned and left the building, his heart heavy with regret. He had tried, but he had failed. And now, he was alone with nothing but the consequences of his choices. Living with Betty had brought more than just a sense of stability for Sam. It had also introduced him to Emma, the granddaughter of one of Betty's neighbors. Over the past few weeks, Sam and Emma had shared quiet moments together in the neighborhood. Whether it was during community events or casual conversations in the yard, they had gradually grown closer. There was something about her kindness, her smile, that Sam couldn't ignore. He found himself drawn to her, though he never fully allowed himself to entertain the idea of anything serious. Betty, ever the perceptive one, had noticed the way Sam's eyes softened when Emma walked into the room, and how their conversations lingered longer than they should. It wasn't just a passing infatuation, she realized. There was something real developing between them. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Betty caught Sam sitting on the porch, gazing down the street as if waiting for something. She knew the look. It was the same one she had seen in her own reflection years ago when her heart had first been captured by someone special. Sam, she said, gently approaching him, how about we invite Emma over for dinner tonight? Sam looked up, startled, but Betty could see the flicker of hope in his eyes. He didn't want to get ahead of himself, but the idea of spending more time with Emma sounded promising. You think that's a good idea? Betty smiled, her hands resting on her hips. It's a perfect idea. You're both adults, and I'm sure you'll enjoy a quiet meal together. Besides, you never know when the right time will come. She winked at him as she went inside to start preparing the meal. That evening, Emma arrived, looking as charming as always. Sam tried to keep his nerves in check, but it was difficult. Sitting across from her, talking, laughing, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. They shared stories, the small talk that eventually led to deeper conversations. There was a moment when their eyes met, and Sam felt his heart race. This wasn't just a dinner between two people. This was a connection he couldn't ignore. As the evening wore on, Sam found himself more at ease. The conversation had flowed naturally, the silence comfortable. He found the courage to speak up, his voice slightly shaky but sincere. "Emma," he began, his gaze locked with hers, "I know this might seem quick, but I'd like to get to know you better. Not just as neighbors or friends, but, well, you know, more." Emma paused for a moment, her expression softening. She looked into Sam's eyes, a quiet understanding passing between them. "I'd like that too," she replied, her smile genuine. "I've enjoyed our time together." Sam felt a rush of relief. There was something about Emma that made him feel like he was worthy again, that maybe, just maybe, his past didn't define his future. But as the night ended, that old doubt crept in. The weight of his criminal past, the mistakes he had made, still lingered. How could he explain that to Emma? How could he possibly tell her about the prison sentence, the years lost, the mistakes that had shaped him? He told himself he'd wait for the right time to bring it up. Maybe when things between them were more solid, when Emma could see the man he had become, and not just the man he used to be. For now, he would enjoy the moment, hold on to the feeling of having a future that wasn't dictated by regret. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that his past was always lurking, ready to ruin what had started to feel like something real. He had worked so hard to move forward, but would Emma understand? Would she be willing to accept all of him, including the parts that were difficult to talk about? Only time would tell. But Sam knew that for now, this new chapter in his life felt right, even if the full story wasn't ready to be shared. As Sam lay in bed that night, he turned the idea of telling Emma over in his mind. He wanted to be honest with her, but there was a fear he couldn't ignore. The fear that she would look at him differently, that she would see him for the mistakes he had made instead of the man he was trying to become. Still, he knew that at some point, the truth would come out. He just hoped he could find a way to say it without losing the only thing that had ever felt worth fighting for. Emma. Tomorrow, he promised himself. Tomorrow he would figure out the best way to tell her, but tonight he allowed himself to dream a little. For the first time in a long time, Sam felt like he had something worth fighting for, and he wasn't ready to give it up. Nathan was spiraling. Desperation had consumed him. He couldn't stand seeing Sam and Emma so happy, so he decided to tear everything down. He stormed into Sam's office, uninvited and furious, spilling the truth about his own past. A past that Sam had no idea about. He told Emma everything, Nathan's history in prison, the bad decisions he'd made, and the things he did when he was younger that still haunted him. His plan was simple: destroy Sam's reputation in one brutal blow, make Emma question everything. Emma was silent after hearing the news. She stood there, feeling the weight of his words press down on her chest. She couldn't believe it, not because she didn't trust Sam, but because she wasn't sure if she could reconcile the man Sam had become with the man Nathan was describing. Her heart was torn between the man she loved and the doubts planted in her mind. She needed space. She needed time to think. Sam tried to reach out to her, but Emma pushed him away. "I need time," she said, her voice shaky. Sam could see the pain in her eyes, and it tore him apart. He watched her walk away, knowing he couldn't chase her. He had to let her process. But as the days passed, something inside him burned with determination. He wasn't going to let Nathan, or anyone, take Emma away from him. Sam knew that words weren't enough anymore. He needed to show Emma who he truly was, through his actions. He set to work on a project that had been on his mind for months, a community initiative that would impact everyone. Sam took on the challenge of renovating the old school where Emma had once studied. He poured his heart into it, turning the neglected building into something beautiful, something Emma could be proud of. She was skeptical at first, but he insisted. "This is for you," he said, as he handed her the blueprints one evening, "and for everyone who deserves a second chance." He didn't stop there. Sam launched several other charitable projects: a food drive for the elderly, a shelter for people who had nowhere to go. Each time, he made sure Emma knew he was doing it not just for the community, but for her, because he wanted to prove to her that he wasn't the man Nathan had painted, that he had changed for good. Sam's consistency spoke louder than words ever could. Emma watched him from the sidelines, unsure at first, but with each new initiative, she saw something different. She saw Sam's sincerity. He wasn't doing this for praise or recognition. He was doing it because he wanted to build something better for the people around him. And she noticed how much he put into every detail, how he always made sure the work felt personal, meaningful. She started to see him differently. The man who had once been a part of her past had evolved, and perhaps, she realized, so had she. She had been so focused on the past that she had forgotten to see the person in front of her now. Sam wasn't perfect, but he was trying. He was trying harder than anyone she'd ever known. And slowly, the walls she had built around herself began to fall. One day, while helping Sam at a community event, Emma found herself standing beside him, no longer questioning his motives. She watched as he interacted with the people they had helped. The gratitude in their eyes, the trust they had placed in him, it was genuine. Sam had proven to her, through his deeds, that he was not the man Nathan had claimed he was. He was someone she could believe in again. As the day came to a close, Sam turned to Emma. He didn't ask for her forgiveness. He didn't expect her to change overnight. But he did say one thing. "I'm here, Emma. Not just for this, but for you. For whatever it takes. I've made mistakes, but I'm not going to stop trying. Not now. Not ever." Emma didn't say anything right away, but the look in her eyes said everything. She knew Sam had changed, and maybe for the first time in a long while, she felt like she could allow herself to believe in the future again. She wasn't ready to jump back into the relationship right away, but the door was open now. She was willing to see where it went, to let Sam show her what his love really meant. The projects kept rolling in, the community grew stronger, and so did their bond. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick. But Sam had earned Emma's trust, one act of kindness at a time. They weren't perfect, but they were learning, together. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for in life. Through it all, Sam never stopped showing up. He didn't let Nathan's words tear him down. He didn't let Emma's doubts stop him. He built something more than just houses or shelters. He built a future, brick by brick, with Emma by his side. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Nathan had tried everything, but nothing worked. No matter how much he manipulated the situation or tried to control the narrative, he couldn't get what he wanted. The weight of his failure, combined with the pressure from his wife, pushed him to the edge. One morning, he left without a word, vanishing into the unknown. No one knew where he went or why, but the whispers that followed were the same. Nathan had always been the kind of man to run when things got tough. As the days passed, Emma and Sam grew closer. There was a quiet understanding between them, an unspoken bond that was built on trust and shared dreams. They didn't need to say much. They both knew what they wanted. Marriage was on the horizon, but more than that, they were building a life, a real one. One where they could stand side by side, facing whatever came next with open hearts and hands ready to work. Sam's business was thriving in a way he never expected. What started as a small venture had turned into a beacon of success, a testament to hard work and second chances. People in Kansas started seeing him differently, not just as a businessman, but as someone who had genuinely changed. The town that once whispered about him now looked to him for inspiration. He wasn't just part of the community, he was helping reshape it. At home, things were simple but fulfilling. Sam, Emma, and Betty settled into a rhythm that made their house feel like a true home. There were no pretensions, just a deep sense of contentment. They didn't need blood to define family. They had each other, and that was enough. Betty, with her wisdom and warmth, was the glue that held everything together. Emma, with her gentle strength, kept them grounded. And Sam, with his quiet determination, made sure their future was built on something solid. As time passed, they all found peace in their own way. Sam's business continued to grow, but it was more than that. It was a symbol of everything they had overcome together. Emma's smile, the way she looked at him with the quiet knowledge that their love was real, made everything worth it. And Betty, who had seen it all, just smiled as she watched them, knowing that the family they had become was something far more meaningful than anything she had ever imagined. Nathan was gone, his presence fading into the background, just another part of their past. Emma and Sam didn't look back. They couldn't afford to. They had everything they needed in front of them now, and they weren't about to let anything or anyone take that away. The future was wide open, and they were ready to walk into it, hand in hand, with the strength they had found in each other. In a way, it was the perfect ending, not just to the story of Nathan, but to everything that had come before. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about learning from it, growing beyond it, and finding peace in the present. For Sam, Emma, and Betty, that peace was everything. It was the future they had earned. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this journey with Sam, Emma, and Betty as they closed the door on their past and stepped boldly into their future. It's a reminder that no matter where we've been, our next chapter is always within our control. Life isn't just about what we've gone through. It's about what we choose to build moving forward. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where you let go of something from your past and embraced a new beginning? What challenges have you faced, and how did you overcome them? Share your stories with us in the comments below. Your story matters. Let's inspire each other to keep moving forward.